Hello, thank you for tuning in again. My name is Nehru. I am the encourager, and this is part three of the My Father, Your King story, the true story about my father and his 30 plus year polygamous lifestyle that imploded in 2014 with his arrest and subsequent sentence of 44 to 66 years. And he's serving that sentence in a Michigan state prison. He is a registered sex offender, and he has the bulk of, or the big, uh, largest reason for him serving that sentence is the impregnation of a 15-year-old at the time. She's now in her 20s and doing very well, and so is her daughter. Um, and so my name again is Nehru, and I started this channel specifically for and led by Spirit, specifically for the truth, and that truth is one that I have lived and I continue to live. A little bit about myself. Um, I was born on the 333rd day of the year. And in fact, the way that my numbers break down is the 11th month, the 29th day, and then the year that I was born also is an 11. So there's an 11 month, 11th day, and 11th year. I am an earth angel, and I am a star seed. I am a healer. I am an alchemist. I've healed myself numerous times. When I was a child, I was having seizures, and I healed myself at the age of 9. Um, and I haven't had one since. In fact, I served 8 years in the military, and thank you for those of you who do. There's no greater purpose and no greater call than to lay down your life for another man's, especially when they are a stranger, because you write a blank check every time you put that uniform on, whether you are in garrison or you are deployed in a wartime situation. And so, to all those men and women who do that, thank you. I definitely appreciate that, and I am a hardcore patriot, and not because I believe America is the greatest country, but because I believe in the soldier mentality. And I'm a warrior. I am a fighter. I've always been that way. Uh, I am the eldest of 17. And again, numbers, synchronicities are extremely important. I've always been drawn to the number 3, the number 7, the number 9, the number 17, the number 19, the number 21, the number 24, the number 22, the number 29, the number 33, the number 44. Those numbers have always uh, followed me. And in fact, I see them numerous times throughout the day. I couldn't tell you the number of times that I see 33. I couldn't tell you the number of times in a day that I see 111. I can't tell you the number of times that these synchronicities confirm things in me and for me. And so that's the reason why I started this channel, is to hopefully illuminate or help illuminate. I'm not the only one here doing this, but to help illuminate the real truth. And that real truth is beyond Genesis to Revelation. And anyone who believes that Genesis to Revelation is all that the Father had to say cannot believe also that He is an infinite God. Because if you believe that He can sum Himself up and His overall purpose for man in 66 books, then I'm sorry, you're foolish. Okay, and ignorance is not bliss. Okay, and it never will be. So, so part of my reason for this is to alchemize all the lies that have been told, all the manipulation that is spoken every Sunday and released to man to somehow figure out on their own. They have removed scripture. Uh, and really kind of dumbed it down in order to control you. So my father, his name is Kevin, and I will refer to him as Kevin. I will not refer to him as my father. And the same thing with the woman I call my mother. I will refer to her in her name. I will not refer to her as my mother. And again, I have my own reasons for doing that. It's no disrespect to them, but I am as Christ, and that is, someone says, where's your mother or where's your father? And my question is, who is my mother and who is my father? Because if they are living lies and they are deceiving, they are manipulating, they are stealing, they are not my mother and my father. I'm a grown-ass man, and I don't need them, and they obviously don't need me based on their witchcraft and spell work that they've done since I was a child. So here we are. I believe I left off somewhere around 2010, but I'm going to go back a little bit. So let's go back to 2009, 2003. 2003, I was exiting the military after 8 years of service, and the lady that he had taken from me, for those of you who have not listened to the other messages, I was married in 1996 to a lady who was a childhood sweetheart from Illinois, where I was born, and went to get her while I was in the military and brought her to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I was stationed at the time. And what ultimately ended up happening was, I did not know this. I was extremely blind spiritually at the time and very much religious, because he was a minister, or at least he called himself that, during those 30 plus years of polygamist activity. And again, that's why he has 17 children. So in 2003, I get out of the military. And again, my healing power is my unconditional love. And today I understand that. Okay, so my unconditional love, it bothers the enemy, because I give freely. I don't ask in return for anything back. It's always been that way. I forgave my father for taking my wife, and he took my first wife and the girl who I assume is my daughter. Now I wonder, and if there's ever an opportunity for a DNA test, I would definitely be doing that. But today I have no communication with them, obviously, and I haven't for more than 10 years. I have not seen her. The last time I spoke with her, after the FBI busted down their door and arrested him, and the court case began, then she told me at the age of 14 that she wanted nothing to do with me. I did understand that was because of brainwashing, right, that she had been subject to from those women who were involved with him, and her mother as well as him. So, but I get out of the military in 2003, and things are fine, right? I've already forgiven him. He was my best friend growing up, and so I did not. You hear the siren? You hear that? That's a confirmation. So I'm telling the truth. So he decided that he wanted to manipulate the woman that he had taken from me, and told her that I could not see my daughter unless I went to his house. Okay. Now, we had already gone to court and already had a divorce, and I attempted to tell the judge that she was living in a polygamous situation. That judge in Orlando, Florida, that judge told me that we're not here to discuss that. I wish he could know where this story went today, and I wonder how he'd feel about his decision. And that is why, if I have a hang up about law enforcement and those who are in positions, is that they are not intuitive. They are low vibration themselves. And so because of that, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so they speak out the side of their face. Okay. So imagine this. Imagine if, let me think about a case. So there's a detective in Jacksonville, Florida, right? His name is Michael Glover. You can look up the case. He wrongfully arrested and physically abused a minor. I think the kid at the time was 15 or 16, and his name is Brennan, I forget his last name. But anyway, if you look up Brennan Jacksonville or Michael Glover, you'll find the case for sure. So he physically abused this kid based on the wrongful identification of someone. Now and I say Brown again. You can think about whatever you think of me, however you want to. But again, I stand in my power as an ascended master, and I know who I am. So if you think that what I'm saying, it doesn't jive with you, that's okay. We all have our own path of revelation. Okay? So I don't say black, I say brown, because the color spectrum tells me distinctly those are two different colors, and I look at my skin and it is not black. Okay? And neither is yours. No matter what you've been taught or manipulated to believe, you are brown, and neither is someone white unless they're a ghost, right? That kind of ghost, like Casper, right? They are Caucasian. Okay? So there's no black and white in my book, and there never has been. And that's what's allowed me to, in many cases, my past life, I was an accountant. Sometimes I was the only brown person who did not work in the warehouse, who did not have to sweat for their money, and I managed the millions because I don't have the mentality of black and white. I don't have the mentality of me against them. I don't have that mentality. My unconditional love is what allows me to alchemize things that come against me, what allows me to heal people who I come into relationship with, right? Whether those relationships are platonic, intimate, or what have you, right? And by the way, since coming into this ascension, I've been celibate, and that's been a long time. So it's just, again, that's just word to me, okay? So in 2003, he decides that he doesn't want me to see my daughter unless I come to his house, okay? And so what ended up happening was he ended up popping smoke. He ended up leaving, packed up everything one day and ended up leaving. I didn't find this out until 2005, okay? He had left to go to Georgia. Now, because he was running from the law, okay, because in Florida, where I now reside and where we moved to in 1991, for those of you who have not watched the previous videos, he had gone through a separation with someone who he, throughout the 80s, had labeled as his wife, even though they were never married on paper. And he started this polygamous lifestyle around 79 or 80 when he got out of the military. He served 4 years in the Navy, and I always make a joke about him being the seaman and me being the soldier, and there's some truth to that in my situation. I remember as a kid, 10, 11, 12, I don't know when they stopped, but I would have dreams, and I would have dreams that I was literally smashing his face in. We'd be in a fight in a boxing ring, or we'd be out on the street, at the house, wherever, right? I've had numerous dreams, and over time, perhaps I'll share some of those, based on how I'm led and what I'm speaking on. But I remember I'd wake up apologizing to the Father because my heart was just that genuine. It was just that pure. I'd be like, no, I love him. He's my father, blah, blah, blah. He's my best friend, and he was. I would follow him to hell if that's where he was going. And obviously I wouldn't do that today. He's on his own. And in fact, that's probably honestly where he's going to end up. He's going to end up in purgatory. But for the witchcraft and evil warlock work that he's done. And so he's also a Freemason, and he worked with Eastern Stars. And no, not all Masons do evil spell work and witchcraft and are evil warlocks. He chose that path. Okay, and those who were joined to him also chose that path. Right? And so over the 30 plus years, again, there's 17 children, 17 of us, 17 kids of his. And today, most of us are adults. The youngest, again, being 14, and will be going into high school this coming fall of 2023. So Once that happened, I was in panic mode in 2005 when I did not know where my daughter was. Okay. And so I ended up leaving the job that I was on. I literally just walked off the job. I was so distraught. I just walked off the job. I just left. Right. And I had a 7-Eleven. And so I just walked off the job. I just left literally and gave the keys to the assistant manager and said, I gotta go. And that was the last day I worked in that store. And the regional manager gave opportunity for me to come back, but I was in no way emotionally available to do anything other than search for my daughter, to the point of enrolling in college to be a private investigator. I was that diligent about finding out where my daughter was. Okay. I did not find out until 2010 when I was contacted by the Illinois Sheriff's Department because the woman who I had called my mother, Judy, she wanted to know where I was, and I have my own reasons today for believing that why she wanted to know that. And so I had been separated from them for 7 years at that point, from 2003 to 2010. Okay, and again, 7, right? And you'll see that throughout my story, right? You'll see 7s all the time, and you'll see 3s all the time. That in my story, and so when I got in touch with them, this is when things started to fall apart. But it wasn't until 2014 when we actually went to trial. Well, we were going to, but he ended up accepting the plea deal because he found out that myself and 3 other people, one woman who had left him in 2009 after 27 years, and then 2 girls from him. One was his daughter, and the other one was the one he got impregnated, who was not his child, was going to testify against him. And the judge threw the 44 to 66 years at him. Ironically, he ended up starting that sentence on his father's birthday, which is 11/3. Okay, so his father was born on 11/3. And his father is also the one who taught him witchcraft. And I know that because Judy told me that. Okay, so with that, and I'm sure he taught them, he kept Ouija boards in the church, sex in the pulpit. I could tell you just sickening stories about the choices that he made that were complete contradictions to what a man of God, a minister, is supposed to be. Okay, so I always wondered growing up why none of his churches ever grew. They never prospered. He pastored churches in Illinois, Bolingbrook, Illinois, Joliet, Illinois, here in Florida, all over Central Florida. They never prospered, and I always wondered why. And I didn't see it until I decided to pull away from him. When I decided to leave him, then that is why. He prayed that I would go back to war and I would be killed there, because me being around reminded him of what he had done, and he did not want that, right? And he did not want me to prosper. He did not want me to be married. He did not want me to have children. He did not want me to pass on my light worker anointing and giftings to the next generation, to my seed. He did not want that. That's why he took my wife, because he did not want us to have any more children. Okay, so, and he did that time and time again through witchcraft beyond that relationship over the years, as again, as I'm led, you'll find out. Okay, so I get word in 2014 that the trial is happening. The authorities, and this happened in Detroit, Michigan, and the authorities reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to testify against him, and I feel like testifying against him is really, for me, the wrong vibe behind the reason why I would. My whole purpose, again, is the truth, right? That's my passion, is the truth. And that truth is beyond the book of Revelation. That that truth is the Book of Enoch, Gospel of Thomas, Dead Sea Scrolls, and things even beyond that in the 5D. I am associated with, I have Egyptian shamanic bloodline. That's a royal bloodline. And so all of these things, right, I have carried with me since my physical birth. I do know that I've lived other lifetimes, and I am closely connected to others that are that have really done much of the same thing, but in a different way. And as an example, Harriet Tubman. So spiritually, her and I are connected, and I don't know how historically, right? I don't know how that is, but spiritually we are connected. And so she was a healer. She was a rescuer. She was she said she could have saved 1,000 more people if they knew that they were slaves, right? And so that's a very interesting statement and realization, because some people cannot be saved because some people don't realize where they actually are. So people who are in low vibration, this is why men and women who are in toxic relationships and their life ends up being stopped, their physical life ends up being stopped. I think YouTube prefers the word unalive, unalive. So in those situations is because they're functioning in a low vibration situation and they're so blinded by their emotions that their consciousness is completely cut off and they can't see where they're going and how they're going. They can't see the vehicle that they're in. They can't see the demons that are bleeding them dry. They can't see that, right? And so my encouragement to anyone in those situations, you're in an abusive situation, you know in you there is a gut feeling that something is not right in a situation. I strongly urge you to do this first before you reach out to authorities. You need to start functioning from your conscious mind, and the way you do that is to wake up your chakras, right? And most people focus on the 7th chakra, so your root chakra, your sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown. Okay, most people focus on those, but there are also others. So there's your soul chakra, there's a galactic chakra, there's a universe chakra, and so on and so forth. So I've gotten to the point to where I focus on 12 of those chakras, and there's more than that. There's 100 and I don't want to get the number wrong. I want to say 114 chakras actually. And if you look at your feet also, they have chakra points in them, right? Your hands, chakra points, right? And so many of the aches and pains and things that you feel outside of obviously physical damage, if I take a hammer and hit my hand, then I'm causing that damage. But if I'm just sitting here and I'm perfectly fine and all of a sudden I get some sharp pains in my back, there is a chance that there is something going on spiritually and you're being attacked in some way, and you need to do an egg cleanse, a salt bath cleanse, candle clearing. You need to do something that is going to remove the sage, right? You need to do something that's going to remove that energy. So anyway, I'm sorry to ramble on like that. But again, my goal is to heal, and to heal the nations. And the nations are the people. The nations aren't the countries. The nations aren't the dirt, right? It's the souls. Okay, so what ended up happening was in 2014, 2014. He ended up being arrested and sentenced. Now, over the 30 plus years that he was a polygamist, right? He would destroy these families. Okay, and the way that he would do this is when families would come to the church, ultimately he would weed out the husband and weed out the children, and he would take the wife. And give you some situations where he did this. His brother, one of his brothers, excuse me, I'm not going to mention his name, but one of his brothers was dating a woman, and and this is back in the 80s, early 80s, when he returned to Illinois from New Orleans. And he ended up taking that woman in and taking him from his brother. And that woman stayed with him, and she ended up being his punching bag for 30 years, right? Until he was arrested. In fact, she was one of the 2 women who was arrested in the house with him when he was arrested. When the feds busted in the door, and this happened in Ohio, when the feds busted in the door, this is what he had in the house, because his plan was to unalive everyone that was there. That was his goal, and he was going to do that simply by starvation. That's how he was going to do that, right? So that in his eyes, I guess there's no blood on his hands. So the feds busted in the door. He was in the house. 2 women, including that woman that he took from his brother in the 80s, who was still with him, and he used as his personal punching bag. And when I say punching bag, pistol whipped her, all sorts of things. It was bizarre. And I'm going to mention a few of the things that he would do to them, to punish them. Over time, he became a harsher and harsher disciplinarian, and to the point of shame and embarrassment of the children. Now, I was long gone. I'm the eldest of the 17, so I was long gone when he had escalated to such a degree. If I got disciplined, and he was a strong disciplinarian, but if I got disciplined, or my brother, who's 13 months younger than me, who passed at the age of 45, and I'm sure he had a hand in that, I'm sure, it wasn't as severe, but it got to a point to where, if you're familiar with what it means to draw and quarter, so I don't know, in the Old West, when they would draw and quarter someone, they would take their limbs, so both legs, both arms, spread them out, tie ropes to them, and then tie these ropes to horses or carriages, right? And they would simultaneously have all 4 of these units move forward, right? And separating the limbs from the individual's torso, right? And so this is how he would discipline. This is where his discipline escalated to, or what it escalated to. Okay, and again, I was already out of the house and well into my 20s when these things were happening. And so he went from just go to the basement, right? And it just being the child and him with his belt, or him with his cord, right? Because he had a cord that he called Orange Crush, and it was a orange construction cord that he had tied knots at. And this is a true story, right? And so he had escalated to that drawing quarter type of discipline. And not only that, but the children would be completely naked in front of these women. And many of these children were teenagers, okay? So they had reached puberty. And because his whole goal was to simply embarrass and shame people, okay? So when my first wife went with him, right? I was in Germany. She told me she wasn't going to go. And I was obviously devastated, upset, and angry. And I came back, if you've listened to the other video, and know that I tried to resurrect or rescue my marriage to no avail. Okay, so some of the examples of the depravity of this man. I mentioned he would have sex in the pulpit. I mentioned that and I don't even like saying that. That sounds so religious. He would around the altar, right? A place dedicated to divine source, a place dedicated to Yahweh, a place dedicated to holiness, to purity. He would desecrate it in that way. Okay, so that's one example. Another example of how he would punish these women is, now there was two biological sisters in that situation. Okay, that came into the situation when they were 19 and 20 years old, or 18 and 20 years old. And then there is a mother-daughter that's been with him since the 80s. And what he would do, one of the punishments was if there was a situation, an issue with the women. So they were, and this is nothing against women, men fight too, men argue too, right? But if there was bickering going on, right, or the women had an issue, one had an issue with the other, right? He would, at times, he would have them perform oral sex on one another. And that's no lie. He would hear the siren. Hear that? That's a siren. Again, I'm telling the truth. So he would have these women perform oral sex on one another, right? And obviously they would do their whatever with him, right? So they had group sex and whatever else that they were doing, right? But this was one of the punishments. So he would have them have oral sex with one another. In fact, the two sisters and so on and so forth, right? With each other even. Yes, true story. So that's one of the punishments. One of the other punishments was he would take a lighter, and this is again 100% true. He would also take a lighter to their crotch. Okay? He would literally burn it. Now, I don't know what demented, sick fucker, I don't know who would do that, but you have got to be on some heavy shit to want to do that to someone. You hear me? You've got to be just the devil himself. You gotta be, if you are treating people that way. Okay? And I say that with all truth. You gotta be. The closest thing to Satan ever living. You gotta be. If this is the way you choose to treat people. So, Judy, the woman that I called my mother, she supposedly, and again, I say supposedly now that I've been enlightened and awakened, supposedly left him in 2007. Okay? And then she was not one of the women who were going to speak against him or testify against him. Again, very interesting, because she chose not to. Now, again, today I have my reasons as to why she chose not to, but I'm going to tell you this. If someone that I was involved with for a day was doing witchcraft against my child, you best believe I'm prosecuting their ass. You ain't even got to worry about it. You ain't even got to